What up, fam? I am Dr. De Luna, and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today we have on Chris Lockhart. He is a professional mold remediation expert. We've never had someone like him on this podcast. It's usually me just shouting out health tips, giving you lots of doom and gloom to be scared about mold. But this episode was intended to give you the tools to understand how to approach that problem, how to nourish your nervous system, and how to get out of it. Not saying move out of your home, how to solve the problem. I hope that this episode gives you a little bit of ease that you need and a little bit of optimism to be able to tackle this problem, because it's something that's been on my path, and as per usual, I share everything with you, fam. Thanks for being here. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
I am so happy to have you on for so many reasons, let me tell you.
Wow, that is an honor. I can't believe that. Not many people would say that.
Well, the universe has brought us together. You were actually referred to me by someone that I knew who had someone else come investigate their home who could not find it, and you found it. So we can thank them.
Yes.
For sending you my way, and now thanking them for all the people that you've been able to help in my world because of it.
Well, I'm learning a lot about you, and it is an honor to be here. And so many people have said so many wonderful things about you, and you're changing lives. So I'm happy to be a part of something great. So thank you for having me.
Of course, and thank you for that little just warmth to my heart. I always love the reflection of, you know, when you're in this world, I'm sure it's the same as you do it because you want to help people, but sometimes you're not sure.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Nice to know that the word on the street is good.
Good.
Yes.
So far.
So far, so good.
So far. I haven't heard anything bad about you yet. But
We'll see how it goes after this podcast.
Yes.
Exactly. So for my listeners, for my viewers, this is Chris Lockhart. He is the president of Restoration Pro.
Renew Pro.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. It's a new, I knew I was going to mess it up.
I was going to mess it up too. So I'm glad you did that
Pro.
first. Renew Pro Restoration.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful.
It's a tongue twister.
It's something that I am going to nail.
Yes. You and me both.
It's ironic because I practiced it before we started. However, we're going to blame how much mold is circulating in my brain for why I couldn't remember it 30 seconds later.
I'm exposed more than you are. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because there'll be a lot of brain farts going on for sure.
Yeah. And you know what? That's actually why I have this supplement here for our brain. So if we need to take it throughout, we can.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I want to pick your brain about that for sure.
Perfect. We'll talk all about it. So, Chris, I know that you are new to my world. However, you are on Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. And I always start this podcast by letting you know why I'm having you on. And of course, you know, I gave you the little intro that you helped someone in my world. They vouched for you. They said, you need to know this person. You have to have him in your toolbox. So I reached out to you. You called me back immediately. You called me back right away. You were so helpful. You were so eager to help too. And you were just so kind. And I think that when someone is experiencing something like mold, or is curious if they're experiencing something like mold, it's exquisitely overwhelming. And you, from the start, just made it seem like, hey, I got you. I know what to do. I'm here for you. Whenever you need me, I am here for you. And mold is something that is truly so overwhelming for me. It triggers PTSD, honestly, because of how much I've been through. Yes. So to just have someone on the other line of the phone who's just kind and understanding and who will help you find a solution, there's really no amount of money that can pay for that type of just ease to someone's nervous system. So thank you just for the kind human that you are.
Wow. That means a lot to me. Thank you. Really, really, really means a lot to me. Because that's what I try to do. I try to be there for everybody, and I care about people. I really do. So, so thank you for noticing that.
You're
and
welcome.
It's kind of an anomaly in my business. There's a lot of people that will get phone calls and they go MIA. They don't return phone calls, and it's all about making money for them. And that's if you're not making money for them, they ignore you. So thank you for saying that.
No problem. It's just very clear to me that you care about people and that you also love what you do. So
I do.
With that being said, how did you get into this moldy world?
Gosh, I definitely didn't look for it, that's for sure.
No.
I used to be a golf pro in another world. Yeah, in another life. I actually was a head golf professional for many years at a golf club in San Diego, and And we had, gosh, there was a conglomerate of different things going on. There was torrential rains and then followed by all these like fires that went through. And so the golf course was closed for a long time. And then a recession hit, a gnarly recession in 2008. And I had to decide whether or not I was going to stick it out and still be a golf pro, because I worked really hard doing it. And sometimes to be a head professional, you have to wait for somebody to die to get in, you know. So I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to stick to do what I was doing or do something else. And so I figured I'd do something else, and I figured I could try sales because I love people and I love building relationships and stuff like that. So I worked for a company called ServPro, which those of you who are not familiar with it, ServPro is, I would say, the biggest restoration company in the world. It's a franchise company, has franchises all over United States and Canada. So... but anyways, got a job with them in sales, and I did really well in sales for them. There was an owner that owned about 3 franchises in San Diego, and they thought I was the golden child because I did so well at it, but I was really just giving golf lessons to people that would give me business. So I was just taking people golfing and having a great time, and all the other ServPro franchises were like, how are you doing this, and why are you so good at this, and what are your sales skills, and what's your approach, and I was just playing golf with people. So I did really well with that, and I ended up being like an operations manager for the company, and ended up being a general manager. So I kind of had my hand in every aspect of it and learned a lot of operational things as far as being on job sites and learning about the mold remediation process and all that stuff. And then I ended up buying a franchise myself. So I owned ServPro of Temecula for years, and I was done with a big corporate gig, and I wanted to start something local and wanted to do it on my own and on my terms and the way I thought things should be run. And so I started Seaside Mold and Water. And now we've just joined in with a couple of partners who are helping things expand and doing wonderful things. And now we are Renew Pro Restoration.
Woo!
I'm glad I remembered that. Yes. So it's brand new. So
nailed it.
We'll see if we can figure that out. But that's it in a nutshell. And
yes.
There's a lot in between, but
yeah,
we'll go over that, I'm sure.
I'm sure. And, you know, I love that you've just been a people person this whole time, because that's truly what I felt when I called you the first time. And again, people going through this, they need a friend. They don't need someone to rip down a wall. They need a friend to tell them and to help them and to believe them, because so often, especially in my world, and the landlords that I've had, they said, oh no, there's no mold here. Or if there is mold, they go, oh, of course you live by the ocean. Of course there's going to be mold here. Yeah. Or you have indoor plants. Of course there's going to be mold in here. Sure. Can we talk through some of the bullshit of some of those statements, please?
Yeah, there's a lot of BS for sure. Gosh, there's a history to this. So there was a huge lawsuit, I think between farmers and somebody who had mold in their house, and farmers had to give up millions of dollars, and the restoration companies were just finding out about the problems that mold causes you, and just kind of learning about that, and so no one really knew anything about it, and restoration companies were charging millions of dollars to come in and remove mold in people's houses because the insurance companies didn't know anything about it, and they didn't know how much was a good charge or not. So the restoration industry they were making millions off of this, and so all of a sudden the insurance industry said, forget it, we're not covering mold anymore.
Perfect.
And almost there was like a public relations campaign to make sure that mold was not really a big deal. And so it was kind of brushed under the rug. And so when people hear of black mold, that was when the whole black mold craze came out. So there was all this panic on it. But there's a lot of people that think mold is not a big deal. And maybe for some people it isn't. You know, if you have little exposure to it, if you're a handyman coming into a bathroom that has mold, and it's fine, we'll just spray some bleach on it, we'll paint over it, and they're fine. You know, it's not affecting me. But There are other people that cannot detox mold, and they will be deathly sick, and it changes lives, changes families' lives. I've seen it so many times before. So mold is a very, very big deal.
Yeah.
And so, and there's a distinction between types of spores that are harmful for you and the types that are not, which maybe we can get in a little bit later. But yeah, there's a lot of BS going on for sure. And, you know, especially with landlords, you're trying to save money, insurance companies trying to, you know, find some sort of a loophole to not cover things. So, yeah, there is. But I think which is great about someone like you and someone like me is that we're kind of exposing that and educating people to, you know, so they can determine whether or not something is dangerous or not, rather than listening to somebody that doesn't know anything. So,
Exactly.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that, because ultimately everyone's just trying to save their own ass, right? And if you,
Yes.
if one of the worst things that I think a landlord could hear is that there's mold in this house, because hopefully the landlord's aware that it's not just on the surface. That means that there's a deeper issue, and oftentimes that is costly. It's not covered by insurance. They don't want to do it. However, legally, at least in the state of California, mold growth in the home is considered hazardous to the point that legally it's not a livable home. It's not a livable place if there is mold growing. So I just want to empower my listeners for that. If there's visible mold growing and you are in the state of California, I don't know the legislative efforts in this entire country, barely even in California, but legally that is not an acceptable home for you to be in. So it's challenging because that's something that everyone hears, just spray it with bleach.
Yeah.
Just spray it with bleach.
Yes.
That actually makes the mold turn into a incredibly toxic compound that can make you even sicker.
Yes.
So I would highly recommend against that.
Bleach is a very bad thing to use anyways. It's extremely harmful to you, right? So, there's a lot of products that are in the restoration industry that are very harmful for you. Bleach is one of them. People use bleach. But there are products that are more dangerous for you than mold is, and they will use that to kill mold. Most restoration companies will use an antimicrobial. And I think what most people don't realize, and I think a lot of restoration companies don't realize, is that an antimicrobial does not kill mold. So it has antifungal properties, but it's basically a germicide. And so we were taught to put that on jobs that, like sewage jobs, what we call category 3 water damage jobs. So, but you know, and that's another thing too. I mean, there's a lot of people that fog. I'm a big believer in fogging with an antimicrobial, which is great. But the main purpose of fogging is to actually trap the particles and bring them down to the ground rather than killing anything. So there's a big misconception. So there are a lot of great products to use, but understand that an antimicrobial does not kill mold. You actually have to remove it completely in order to be safe. So
yes, and thank you for saying that as well. I'm also a really big fan of fogging, and I do have some patients that are doing that just to kind of maintain, but it's not solving the root cause. And being a naturopathic doctor, I'm about the root cause. So I wouldn't just give someone a medication to cover up a symptom to make it less loud every day. I would want to find the root cause of it to eliminate it, and that's exactly what you do.
yes.
So can you walk us through that process a little bit? What does an inspection look like for you?
Good. Yeah. Great question. There is a very big difference between an inspection and testing, right? And remediation, right? So in our industry, we have companies that do testing and companies that do remediation. So the testing of it will be collecting samples. So they can either do it with an air test or a tape test or a swab test or an ERMI, which we can get into a little bit later. And there are companies like mine that actually do the removing of it, right? So now I do inspections, so I don't take anything to the lab. I don't look at it. I can't tell you what the spore counts are, what type of mold fungus we're looking at. But I could tell you if you have a problem or not. And obviously, if something is visual, we wouldn't want somebody to come and test it because it'd be pretty superfluous to do that. You know, you'd pay $1,000 to have them say, yes, it's mold, and I already know it is. So, but picking out problem areas, there are, just being in the industry for as long as I have, I've seen a lot. And I haven't seen everything. I learn something every day. But just based off of being in the industry for so long, I can know where mold is hiding. I know the places to look. I know the signs that look like there could be an issue going on. And that's what I do in my inspections. And, you know, when looking in somebody's home and trying to find mold, you know, you can have a tester come out and find nothing, and then I can go out and find something.
Yes.
Or vice versa. I couldn't find a thing, and a tester would come out and find something. So sometimes it takes a village of people to try to figure something out. And I have a lot of people that work with me. We're a team and trying to figure this thing out. And but you know, I think what, you know, we were talking about this earlier. I really care about people, and I really want to find it, right? So when I'm in front of a family who, you know, one of their daughters is really sick from mold, and the doctor said they have mold exposure, and we can't find it, and the testers can't find it, and all that stuff, I'm going to find it. I just feel like that, you know, and I have a family too, and I treat everything like it's my own family and my own kids. So, and I have a team of people that's what they do. We really want to find it and uncover it. So that's part of what I do as far as an inspection, which is completely different than a test. So, yeah, and a lot of the times I can find something. I'll know that it's mold, and what I like to do is do a test afterwards, which is called a post-clearance test, to make sure that the area is clean afterwards. So,
Yes. How often that does not happen in my world, that post-test, and that's the key.
Yes.
Because also, you know, you can get sick if you don't properly clean the area because you're just emitting all of that toxicity into the air, which then settles onto dust, and it can be recirculated with every step that you take in the house. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of just visual inspection too. You know what to look for, you know the signs of water damage, you know the hidden moist dark areas to look for and things like that.
Yeah, and we have you know, I have moisture meters and stuff, so I've got infrared cameras and moisture meters and all different kinds of stuff that we can, you know, determine whether or not there's an issue there for sure. But yeah, a lot of it is visual, and a lot of it is just using it. And then that's what a tester will do also. They'll take moisture readings and things like that, but they'll go one step further. Yes. So something that I see a lot of in my world is that they say that, you know, I can, at this point, it's getting easier for me to pick up on the symptom picture because it can be vague and it can be very different in every individual. And I can pick up on the symptom picture. I say, I think you have mold. So let's test your home. Of course, they're renting the home a lot of the time. They don't want to test it. So they reach out to their landlord like they should. They call a random person to come in. And if they're lucky, they'll do an air test. And a lot of the time, this air test is done in the center of a room. Just in the center of the room. There's no control done to outside. And that's really frustrating for me because oftentimes there's not mold sitting in the center of the room. There could be a little bit, but most of the time it's hidden. It's behind the wall. It's under the sink. So I actually had, before I met you, I met Anna Branch from My Home, My Health, and she saved my life. She saved my life in my first place that I discovered that there was mold in. And she, you know, she's a little detective, and she came in, she drilled holes behind the wall. She put her little air thing back there, pulled out the air samples, and that was the data that I needed. But I did just want to stress that to anyone listening that, you know, yes, you can still have someone come, but as you were stressing, they can easily miss it if they don't know what to be looking for. And I think that, you know, experience is invaluable, but also training is invaluable. And I think that a lot of individuals that are called on to a site are just property managers or essentially are just contractors that are not trained in mold. So they don't necessarily know what to look for. Or I get this one a lot. It's not wet. There can't be mold. Right.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, it's another BS thing.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, there's especially property managers. I mean, this has happened to me so many times, is that they'll actually ask me to be very general in what I'm doing. You know, just go in there, take a couple readings, you know, just go in that one bedroom and just, you know, just real quick, take a couple pictures. I'm not really trying to uncover anything here. So, yeah, and they do that to the testing companies too. Hey, you know, if you could just test in this room, I just need one sample and that's it. So, shout out to Anna Branch, though. She is amazing. She's a bulldog. So
she is.
She's one of those people that care too. You know,
she does.
So if she wants to find mold in the house, and she'll uncover everything, and so she goes above and beyond most people. Yeah, definitely.
She's taught me so much. I feel like I'm like a little baby inspector in training.
Yes, she's great. Yeah, I've worked with her many times and highly recommend her. She's fantastic. Yes. Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you on the on just the testing techniques, what's really important in testing, and Anna probably mentioned this more than anybody else, but it's really important to have baselines,
Yes.
right? So if we're testing in one room, if we have an issue in a room, we want to figure out what the other rooms are doing, what's outside doing. We can compare spore counts, we compare what types of spores are out there. So that's really, really important. So a lot of people will take into account, they'll do their own testing or they'll do ERMI testing and stuff, but there's definitely a technique in finding that out. So,
Yeah. And even going back to earlier, how you were speaking that there was kind of this surgence in black mold and people were talking about black mold. I need to stress to the listeners that it doesn't have to be black for it to be toxic.
yes.
And I would argue that if there's mold anywhere, you have an issue.
You do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm happy that you agreed.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely agree. I've seen green mold, white mold,
Orange mold.
orange mold. I've seen pink mold.
Yeah.
Yes. We've seen, all colors of the rainbow.
Well, if it's pink, it's safe because that's
yes.
pretty.
Yes. Yeah. I
No,
don't know.
it's all bad.
Yeah.
It's all so
really
bad.
Yeah, I've had the worst mold job I've ever done in my life, and I've seen probably every color of the rainbow in this. So there was a garage, a separate garage from the house in Cardiff, and it was they made it into the sound room for band practice, and so they had a bunch of instruments and stuff in there, and they hadn't used it for like 2 years, and so they closed it up. It was completely dark, had a bunch of soundproofing and stuff in there, and the garage was built on a side of a hill that it acted as a retaining wall, the back of it, right? And they had flooding in there for years,
Great.
right? And no one had gone in there. And so water coming into an ultra dark, cool place for years. And when we went in there, I could not believe it. Just the instruments were covered with all kinds of stuff. Things you would only see in textbooks. They have mushrooms growing out of the walls.
Really?
There was a mushroom growing out of the piano that was massive. There was mushrooms that looked like gosh, what do you call them? Fettuccine? It's like fettuccine. It looked like someone dropped thought someone dropped pasta on the ground, and it was mold. So you've seen some crazy stuff, but that one was the worst. But yeah, every color of the rainbow was in that one. Yeah.
I'm like, there's literally fucking mushrooms growing.
Yeah.
I have a friend, because my friends know, I honestly didn't know that I was currently living in mold for the past 2.5 years, which is beautiful. We'll talk about that soon. But even before then, I moved out of a home because of incredible levels of toxic mold. So I immediately moved out. I'm always open to my friends, my community, my patients about what I'm going through, because I find that everything that I'm going through is because I get to then teach people, I get to heal from it, and I get to help people. So people in my world know that I have experienced mold before, and I had a friend text me saying, hey, can you take a look at this picture? My friend is texting me this, and her landlord's refusing to fix the wall, and they're arguing back and forth. It was literally an open hole in which it looked like there was flooding in the roof, mushrooms sprouting all over it. I just texted him back being like, homie, stop paying rent, move out immediately, fuck that landlord.
Yeah.
How can you argue a mushroom?
Yeah. Wild. It's so funny because I'll walk into people's houses and I get, I get bombarded by, this is why I'm exposed to mold all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I go into somebody's house thinking that they were just they don't know if they had mold. Maybe I can check for moisture. There's a wall that's in question, and I walk into a room and there's mold everywhere. There's all over the ceiling, all over the walls. And they ask me, is this mold? Is this bad? Oh my gosh, this is insane. So when you see, especially in water damage areas where you have a wet, dry wall and you've got mold on the outside, the inside is so much worse. It's insane. So
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess we can start to get into some of my trauma now. So I recently the last house I just moved out of last week was wonderful. Really great to move unexpectedly. So, in San Diego, it's been raining way more than it ever has.
Yes.
Right? And maybe a year ago, it was the big flood that we had. Time doesn't make sense to me anymore, whenever that big rain was. And I had a cute little fireplace in the living room, and the chimney had a crack in it. So there was water coming through the chimney, and it was dripping through the fireplace onto the floor. And it was a concrete area right there, but still it was surrounded by wood. And I, right when I saw it, freaked out naturally, immediately called my landlord. They're like, okay, we'll come over tomorrow to seal it. He comes over tomorrow to seal it. Didn't work.
Yeah.
So it happened again.
Yeah.
So now there's water pooling in the house and I'm doing everything I can. I'm alerting this landlord every single time. And honestly, he was a great landlord. So I thought I have nothing against him until now. So, this was happening. I was doing my best to dry it up every single time, like catching it as it was pouring in. So I thought I was doing the right thing because it wasn't getting onto the floor.
Sure.
And I also, being someone that has lived through mold, I'm aware that sometimes I can freak out when I don't need to freak out. So I try to self-soothe whenever possible, but I should have freaked out. I went away for the weekend. I came back. It had rained again.
Oh, no.
It had flooded. It had gone through. It was on the wood. Once again, I told him hey, there's water in here. You did not fucking fix the problem. Can you call someone that knows how to fix a chimney instead of just pretending that you know how to fix the chimney? Because clearly you don't fucking know how to fix the chimney. Sorry, this is my liver. My liver has a lot of anger in it due to the mold. And then maybe like 2 months later, every morning, my windows would be moist.
Wow.
I would see it from inside.
Yeah.
It would be building up. And I texted him once again, and he told me, that's normal. That just happens. It's condensation.
Yes.
That's not normal, right?
He's the expert, right?
He's the expert.
He's the expert.
He's the
knows.
expert.
Yeah. Right.
And I think it's funny, too, because I think he forgot for a little bit that I was a doctor. I'm like, sir. Sir.
Hey.
This is not correct.
Yeah.
So the windows kept getting moist. But again, I'm gaslighting myself at this point, being like, he solved the problem. He fixed the hole. There's no more rain coming in. It's okay.
Yeah.
But there was moisture on the windows to the point that now, fast forward 2 months, it's growing on every single window. Now I reach out again.
Gosh.
He says it's normal. It's growing on my house. Can you use bleach to clean it? And at that point I say, I've been sick from mold before. I will not clean this with bleach. Something must be done. He came. Do you know what he did? Because then I go into detective mode. Obviously, I knew it was coming in from the chimney, and that's probably where the water damage was underneath the entire floor now in my living room.
Yes.
However, now I'm curious if there's any other spots, and I noticed that next to a window, the whole window is tilted. And my boyfriend had moved in with me at this point. He's a contractor, so the whole window is tilted.
So he knows
he knows what to look for,
normal.
but he's not a mold specialist by any means. But he can tell when something's off.
Yeah.
So he points it out to me. He's like, "There's definitely water pooling here." I press. The water is moist. It just my finger sinks in. Call my landlord.
Yeah.
Once again, landlord comes. You know what he did? He cut out a little hole, maybe the size of like a chiclet gum. Cut out a little hole, and he's like, "No mold.
No more mold.
It's all in your head." There was nothing here. So I said, "Okay, sir, I'm testing this home." And he said, "It's your right to test it." I tested it with this beautiful Hermie test
Beautiful.
that we could talk about soon.
Excellent.
It came back Q4.
Wow.
My score was a 27.
Yikes.
A 27.
Nice.
That's the worst of any test I've ever seen, to be honest.
Yeah.
And the fun thing is then now I had the data. It's clearly states on that test, Q4, that's exquisitely hazardous. It's not safe for human livelihood. And then it also did the hurts me test on there. And it showed that it was also ill-advised to live in that space. So then legally I had that. And I told him, "Hello, I am never paying you rent again.
Yep.
In fact, you must pay me now for the test, for my medical bills, for my vet bills."
Good for you.
He hasn't done any of these things. I'm going to sue him. But that's a little bit of my story. And so many people go through this, and so many people say, "It's just growing on the windowsill. It's just growing a little bit in the shower."
Yes.
It's not.
And there's I'm sure a lot of listeners out there have experienced that. I've experienced that a lot, and I feel really bad. And part of what I can do for your listeners too, if they're renters and they're going through that experience, feel free to call me. I'll go out and take a look at it for free. We'll take a look at it. I'll write up a report stating what should happen based off of what I can find. So that's if it's just your word, like, "I think this is bad, I think I have mold here," and you don't have any evidence to back it up, a landlord's gonna just not do anything. They're gonna say you're fine. They're gonna be the expert on it. You know, I brought out somebody that knows a lot about mold, which is a handyman who doesn't know crap, right?
Yeah,
and they're
just
gonna
their
come
handyman.
They took care of it. They said there's no more there, and it's just all in your head, and and all that stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Yes, that happens, unfortunately.
A lot of gaslighting from landlords and family members too, which is really sad. So I see that a lot where, maybe there's a family member that is having a really difficult time detoxing mold, and there's a husband or a wife or whatever said, "It's just in your head. We're all fine, I'm fine, and our kids are fine. It's you." I don't know, there's something wrong with you, right?
Yep.
And they start believing, gosh, I must be crazy, right? So, and then we find mold in their house and say, see, I told you this is real. And a lot of people go through that, and I feel bad for that. Renters and people and families that split up over this stuff. It's horrible to see.
It is
I
horrible.
hate to see that. So,
And it's horrible because there's a solution. Because ultimately, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't ever been in a space in which my landlord was cool enough to be like, sure, let me fix this whole thing for you. Even though now I think I'm in that space. Please, God, please. But usually, it's just a doom feeling, but you can fix the problem and then the home is safe again. So what does that look like? And I'm sure it's unique to the situation, but.
Sure. I think, it scares a lot of people. Mold scares a lot of people because there's a lot of unknown, and there's a lot of companies out there that rip people off.
Yeah.
It's a moneymaker. As long as you don't know about it, I'm going to charge you thousands of dollars for it, right? So that's very, very common. So they get scared. They're like, gosh, this is gonna, I'm not gonna be able to pay for this, and I'm gonna have to, sell my home after this, and so there's definitely a fear in that, and I can see that. But usually the issue is very solvable. As a renter too, it's very important if you've had any kind of a water damage, and these are just normal things like a clogged toilet or an overflowed sink. And
Wait,
you don't
clogged toilet?
A clogged toilet, an overflowed toilet.
Oh, overflowing.
Yeah, overflowed.
Okay. I'm like, wait. Okay.
Clogged,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, just things that you might do accidentally. I accidentally ran the bathtub and forgot about it, but I don't want to call my landlord because he's going to be mad at me or whatever. So those are things that you have to let him know and give him the opportunity to, I'm saying him, but it could be he or she. But you definitely want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do that and take care of it right away. But there's a lot of fear there. And honestly, making sure landlords out there will know what to do, how to do it. It's not hugely expensive. And in the long run, it's better for them. It's better for their house. Even if somebody moves out and there's still a mold issue in there, someone's going to have a problem down the road. So it's best to take care of it right away.
Yeah. I have this really gross feeling in my gut that my old landlord is just going to paint it and raise the rent. I don't think they're going to do one thing about it. And again, they're nice people. And I, even knowing all of this, I felt guilty. I felt guilty telling them. I felt guilty breaking my lease. But it was such a mind game for me. So I empathize with everyone that's listening to this and having an oh fuck moment, because it's really stressful, but also, as you're saying, it's very treatable once you find the issue and solve it. But it's, a lot of people don't want to take that dive, but I agree. It's that it's worth it. It's worth it for the health of a home. And I'm grateful in that my landlord right now, he loves his home, and I think that he wants it to be there for a long time. Right. And he's grateful that I pointed things out to him, and I actually had him write into the lease that if there's visible mold anywhere, or if I ever test the home and if it comes back positive, that I can't live there until it tests negative. And I don't know if he's aware of
Good for
what that
you.
means.
That's a great cost to put in there. That's
I think so too.
Yeah. That's
and
fantastic, yeah.
At first I was like, do I make a big deal about this? I'm like, yes, I can't do this again. I can't move again. I can't. It's exhausting and very expensive.
Yes. It can be. It can be.
Well, the moving.
Too. Oh, the moving.
Yeah. I'm not saying the remediation. I've never.
The moving. Yeah. Gosh, that's a headache. I hate that.
It's a headache.
Yes.
It's a headache. So if we could prevent that at all, that would be wonderful.
That would be great.
Yes.
Even for him, having somebody move out and then, having to, list the place, and you're probably going to be down a month or two, not collecting rent.
Yeah.
Might as well just fix the problems. Probably a lot cheaper in the long run anyways.
You would think so. Yes. I'll let you know what he says today after I text him with my list of demands of financial compensation.
Yes.
Which may or may not come true. But I'm a very boisterous New Yorker. Yeah.
That's good. We need more people like that.
We do. And, just being the voice for people that don't have that voice, and the voice of people that are told it's normal, you live by the beach, or what can you expect?
It's not normal.
Yeah. I remember when I was in that same house as well, I was running the dishwasher, which I never have run in my life. I was running, literally, I was not raised with a dishwasher, but I'm like, yeah cool, I'll do dishes today. ran the dishwasher while I was washing clothes. Didn't
Yes.
realize that was going to be an issue.
Yes.
Apparently, you're like, yeah, it's an issue. I didn't know it was an issue. Apparently, it started overflowing through the dishwasher into my kitchen floor. Now
gosh.
I'm about to have friends over for like a ladies' night. I'm now having like a full-blown panic attack, being like, mold is going to grow in here. Call my landlord. He's like, the plumber's not available until tomorrow morning. I'm like, absolutely not. He's coming here now.
Yes.
And then he came. But how often does that happen? And they say, oh, just like try to mop it up. I'll be there in the morning.
Yeah.
But you already have an issue by the morning.
Yeah, there's a so I think a lot of homeowners and renters will think because the water's gone on the floor that there's no more issue. So drywall is like a sponge.
Perfect.
Right, and so if you say that you had a clogged toilet and it overflows a little bit in your bathroom, and you come in there with some towels and you mop it up and everything looks fine, looks dry and all this stuff, and then a month from now it starts smelling a little funky in there. What's happening is that the water goes underneath of the baseboard and then sucks up the drywall. We've seen drywall wet, up to 5 feet just because of the water on the ground. So it's a sponge. It'll just suck it right up. So especially in bathrooms that are painted with a high gloss paint, that's a vapor barrier, right? And so now the water's in there and it can't escape and it's stuck in there. And it loves that wall that's nice and dark and damp, and it's got paper in the back of the drywall. It's just a perfect breeding ground for mold. And it'll look fine on the outside. It'll look totally fine. It'll feel dry to the touch. You can put your hand on it. It feels dry to me. It doesn't feel wet. We have a lot of moisture in our hands, so we can't really determine whether or not a wall is wet. But I see that a lot. So when you do have a water damage, make sure you call a professional out to take a look at it. Just double check, make sure that walls are good.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I first moved into the place that I literally moved into last week, there's like the most beautiful bathtub I've ever seen in my life. It's like a 2.5 person jacuzzi tub, and I'm like a queen, so I'm like, yes. Right when I move in, and it's an older house, and when I'm there, I have my eyes wide open. I'm looking for everything. We're just in and out of the bathroom super quick. I turn the light on. I'm like, can we look I look on the floor, I look on the wall, and I notice a little spot next to the bathtub where there was definitely mold. Without, you really can't deny it.
Sure.
Definitely mold.
Yeah.
This sweet baby angel, do you know what he did? He's like, oh, I'll just replace this whole wall for you.
Wow.
I know. That's why I'm saying I hope I have a good landlord, and I hope when you come, you're like, it's perfect. You're going to live here forever.
That's fantastic.
But he didn't just paint over it.
Yeah.
He literally took the wall down and built a new one down to the studs.
He probably knew what he was doing. He probably had been there before.
Well, actually, the handyman on my property is a mold. He said he's trained in mold remediation.
Great.
Hopefully.
Good.
Hopefully. I don't know. He's not you. You are my preferred human. But I just wanted to share that I think that so often people will be like, oh, of course, there's going to be a little bit of oversplash next to the shower. But to me, that told me it's in the wall.
Sure.
And that was unacceptable to me.
Yes.
So we fixed it.
Which leads us to maybe another topic. Like, how do you know if somebody is trained in mold?
Please, this is great.
So there's a governing body for our line of work called the IICRC, and they give, you can be certified in mold and water and fire damage cleanup and biohazard cleanup. So that is the gold standard. There's a book called the S500, and that is the Bible when it comes to mold remediation, water damage, the whole 9 yards. So having somebody certified is really, really important. So just because someone took a mold class or attended a seminar on mold or whatever does not make them an expert for sure. So
absolutely.
And you'll find a lot of companies that maybe the owner of the company is water certified, but they're not mold certified. Their employees are not certified. They don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of that going on. But certifications are important. The IICRC is kind of the Bible to what we do.
And that's important. I mean, same in my line of work. I wouldn't want a health coach that tells me that they studied gut health. I would want to go to a doctor that has a lot of training in gut health if I was going to work on my gut. Just throwing that out there. No hate for you health coaches, even though sometimes I do. But, when I was living, I call it my first mold den. It was the one that I actively got pretty sick in. It was this little studio in Ocean Beach. It's still one of my favorite places I've ever lived in. It was hard for me to leave. But I left. And I had found, I remember I had so much trauma in that house, honestly. I got divorced. I had a stalker. I had like so much shit. And I was sitting with my friends on the beach and they're like, girl, you got to move out of this house. And I was like, no, I love it. I don't want to move. And they said, what would get you to move? I said, the only thing that would get me to move is if there was mold in here. I kid you not, maybe 1 week later, a piece of the wall fell off.
Yes.
And it was just black. And I was like,
There's
okay,
your
universe,
answer.
sounds great. And that was in the bathroom. So call my landlord. She has someone come out from guess where? Guess.
Serpro.
Yes! Not you. It was not you. It was not Temecula. It was down here.
Yeah.
Someone came out.
Yeah, yes.
You know what they did?
What?
They just opened the wall, didn't close off anything. There was no protective barriers up, and put fans.
Yes.
That's literally all they did. And they're like, oh, we fixed it. We put some bleach back there. We opened up the wall. We put some fans on. And instead of that, I said, Ronnie, my old landlord, now all my fucking clothes are contaminated because they were right outside of that bathroom. And I was infuriated. I'm still infuriated, as you can tell. And they didn't do, a comprehensive anything. They just, the one place I saw is what they fixed. I called Anna. Anna came in. She found it under the kitchen sink. She found it behind another wall. She found it here, there, and everywhere. And then another company came in and they did close it all off. At that point, there was such a bad taste in my mouth that I'm like, we are done with this home. I get it.
Obviously,
but
they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
You cannot put fans on mold. You're just going to blow spores everywhere.
Thank you. Did you hear that?
Yes. Do not put, those of your listeners who have a water damage and it's been going on for a while, there's going to be mold there. Do not put fans. You're just going to blow spores everywhere and cross-contaminate everything. So don't do that. Yeah. Serpro is, I worked for one and I owned one for a while, but, they're a franchise company.
Yes.
And they're, not one franchise is like another one. They're all different. And there's some horrible ones. There's some really, really bad ones. And
I got a bad one.
Yeah, you definitely did. And that's I moved away. That's one of the reasons. My whole goal was to sell it and move on and start my own local company and do things the right way.
Yeah.
And, it was all about making money. It was all about, they got bought out by Blackstone, who's a big, huge company. It just kind of put the whip to everybody, and it was all about the bottom line. And rather than helping people or making sure that everyone's certified and knowing what they're doing, it's just, And there's a lot of other companies like that. There's a lot of franchises out there, and but there are some good ones. There are some Serpros that are amazing, and they know what they're doing, and their technicians are trained. But that's what I find in a lot of restoration companies. There's a lot of education there that just is nobody knows. Just like nobody knows knowledge, on mold. And even when I owned Serpro, the whole idea was to learn about water damage, and mold was just sort of this kind of thing that we do also. So everyone got certified in water, and that's kind of typical. And to own a Serpro franchise, you have to have your ASD, which is Applied Structural Drawing from the IICRC, but there's no, you don't have to have your microbial, you have to have anything. Yeah. That's it. And so what I find in a lot of companies is that they'll have a guy who knows how to do a mold damage that teaches somebody else how to do the mold damage, who teaches somebody else, and then he leaves the company, and now the guy that's existing teaches somebody else how to do it, and by the time it gets to like the fourth or fifth person, no one knows how to do a mold damage, right? So it's something. It's an art form. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of companies that do it really well, and there are a lot of companies that don't. Like that one Serpro that put fans in front of the mold spores. It's insane.
And I remember thinking, I was a little happy, honestly. I was happy that they were taking care of it. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll be fine. Yeah. I was eating at a restaurant. The universe works in mysterious ways. My neighbor was there, who I had chatted to. I had walked my dogs past their house thousands of times. So him and his wife are there. They're talking to me. I'm telling them about what I'm going through. And I told him about mold. And he tells me that his daughter does mold cleanings for houses after they've had work done in it. And he just asked me a little bit about what was going on. I'm like, yeah, they found something in the wall. They opened it up. There's fans going. And he's like, what? And that was, I'll never forget. I was eating with my friend Kelsey, and I just looked at her and I'm like, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
I'm fucked.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where I'm like, okay, I have to move. I finally accepted that that's when I was going to move, which I wish.
Your answer.
Yeah, that was my answer.
You were asking for an answer, and that was your answer.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't even want the answer with this last house. That's why I think I kept telling myself, like, oh, it's okay. He's right. It's probably just a little moisture.
Yeah.
But no, it was bad.
Yes, definitely bad.
It's so bad. I hate it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You find a cool place, and you think it's great. Yeah.
Especially here in San Diego, where it's so hard to even find a place. So then you have to battle hundreds of people even to get approved for a place. And then you move in, you have to be scared that you're going to die in it because of the toxins. And I'm dramatic. My listeners know this, but you're just meeting me for the first time. But you don't seem to be fazed by my drama.
No, I'm around a lot of it.
Yeah.
I have 4 daughters and a wife.
Perfect.
So yeah, I have, there's a lot of drama going on at my house for sure.
Beautiful.
So, yes.
Lots of ladies.
Yeah.
We love this.
But that's an interesting topic that you bring up on just living in a house and loving it and thinking to yourself, well, gosh, I should probably move out into a healthier home. And most people think, a healthier home is a brand new construction.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily the truth, unfortunately. So if you see the way homes are being built, if you ever pass by a construction site and see homes going up during the middle of a rainstorm, what they'll do is the wood gets wet, and then later on somebody says, hey man, we got to cover the wood, and they'll come over and they'll cover it with plastic, so now whatever is in there is now sealed in there. And we call it lumber mold, and in our industry, people look at lumber mold as not being a big deal. Like, oh, it's just lumber mold. It's not a big deal, and it is a very big deal.
Lumber mold.
Lumber mold. Yeah. Lumber mold is a different type of species.
People
not
are so funny the way that they convince themselves that it's fine, right?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, no, lumber mold is really bad, and it gives off mycotoxins. So. I've seen houses built with so much mold in the lumber from the construction. It's very, very sad. Yeah. And even they'll put up a shear wall. A shear wall is like a big piece of wood on the outside of the house. I don't know why I can't think. See, the mold's got me.
It's the mold.
Already.
It's the mold. It's fine. Well, you're doing great.
The mold's got me.
It's got us all.
But anyways, plywood is what I'm thinking of. But they'll do that on the outside of the house, and there will be a rainstorm. It'll get wet. And then they'll put down a vapor barrier. They'll actually call it a vapor barrier so they keep water out, but now they just blocked water in because the wood's already wet. And so we see that a lot. I'm seeing that with a place in Carlsbad. They built a whole condo structure with that. All that mold and stuff on all that new construction was just kind of locked in with the vapor barrier, and it's awful. And you would look in the house and everything looks normal. The moisture in the house is normal. The drywall is normal. There's no signs of water damage. It's brand new, and everyone's sick. So that's an unfortunate thing. Yeah. Very, very unfortunate thing. So
yeah, I'm really happy that you said that, because I think that's even something that when I was then looking. When after I moved out of my first mold den, as I call it, is I go, oh, I'll just get a new build.
Yeah.
It must be good then, right?
Yep.
And even in the new builds, this is just what I do now. I tell everyone, I'm moving out of a place because of mold. It's very important to me that there's no mold in here. I am going to test, but before I test, can you tell me if there's ever been a flood, if there's ever been water damage? And, even in these new builds, if it's an honest person, I'm grateful that people are honest to me most of the time. He's like, there was a flood in here last year. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, it is the law that you have to disclose the water damage if you're selling it. Yeah.
Oh.
So definitely.
Well, selling.
Yeah, you're selling it.
I wasn't buying. I was renting.
Yeah. Not if you're renting. Yeah.
I'm actually terrified to buy a house because of everything we're talking about. I am straight up fucking scared to the point that I'm just like, do I buy a plot of land and then start fresh?
Wow. You have to see, oh my gosh, it's awful. I mean,
I know.
When I bought my first house and I was looking through all the disclosures and all the stuff that they're talking about, I mean, just like where the land is and the possibility of this happening and that happening, it scares the crap out of you. It's just like, if you actually read through them, you're like, gosh, maybe I don't even want to buy this house.
Yeah, maybe I just want to live in my car.
Maybe
Yeah, I've thought of that many times.
Maybe a boat or something. Yeah, who knows?
Moldy boat.
Yeah, moldy boat could be better.
Might be a little more fun.
Could be built out of fiberglass. That might help.
Okay. All right. We'll just have to come up with a new system, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah, because I've also heard, I'm not from this coast, but I've heard that here houses are made even worse.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, we don't have hurricanes. except for that hurricane that we had.
Yeah.
Which was devastating.
That was a devastating
Yeah, that was
hurricane.
bad. Yeah, you probably were laughing when that came through.
I did laugh,
Yes.
and especially because my cute dad is always watching the news. He's like, the hurricane's coming. I'm like, Dad,
hurricane's
it's
coming."
literally drizzling outside. I wish it was more eventful because
Yeah.
I miss a good thunderstorm, but
Right.
it wasn't eventful.
Yeah, the houses go up here very quick. Yeah, we don't have it rarely ever rains here, and we don't have very many storm events, and they go up very quickly. And they're really, they're not made very well. Yeah, and I've been to the East Coast, and I've actually done water damage on the East Coast.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was mold
Yeah.
in my childhood home. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. The
But I'm
whole
just,
basement
like,
was full with mold.
Looking at the construction and how things are made, and just far superior on the East Coast than it is the West Coast for sure.
We love the East Coast.
Yes, it's a good place.
New Yorkers love New York. Yeah, I again know nothing about the bones of a home, but from what I've learned from Anna and just other professionals is that it's an unhealthy home to start. It has
Yeah.
breached barriers to start.
Yes.
So it's just a ticking time bomb for something to happen, which is really disheartening, I suppose.
Yeah, it is the way it's built and the materials they use to build it. You know, it's just like, gosh, guys, you guys got to think of something better than
Yeah.
drywall, man. It's
Speaking
just
of
like,
that,
yes,
I hear that cedar can't grow mold. Is this true?
that's a great question. I don't know.
You don't know. That's what I
I don't
heard.
know.
I keep
Yeah.
telling my boyfriend, "You will build me a home in cedar. We will have a
Build
cedar
cedar.
home."
Definitely
I don't know.
deters moths. It might deter
Yeah.
mold as well.
Right?
So,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you knew that.
Yeah, no, it's cedar. They put in closets, right? To
Yeah.
make sure that there's no bugs or moths or
Yeah,
something like
I feel
that.
like there might be something
There's
there.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might be onto something.
We'll find out. What about
Yeah.
wool? Do you know anything about wool?
I do not know much about wool.
I just built a house with cedar insulated with wool.
I wish I knew anything about construction or building materials, but I do not.
Okay, no problem.
Yes.
You know what you
Yes.
know, and I'm grateful for the knowledge that you do know.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So have you ever went into a home in which you suspected there was mold and you're like, actually, there's no mold in here?
Yes. All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think that is?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why. One would be sometimes you run across some pretty crazy people that are just kind of, they don't have it all connected and they're paranoid over everything and they're like, I can feel it, I can smell it and all that stuff, and maybe they can, but there's a lot of people like that. And they get on the internet and they read until 2:00 in the morning about mold and how there's mold in their house, and they're just freaking out, right? And then you have people that have genuine symptoms of it. They've been to a doctor like you, and you find mold in their system, and I simply can't find it. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And that's a whole family of people that I like to have in my team, because if I can't find it, maybe somebody else can. Maybe Anna Branch can find it. Maybe, other testing companies that I have or restoration companies that I have can find it. So it's just, being around people that care and know that there's an issue and trying to find it. So you can also have somebody that has mold in their system, but it's not in their house.
Exactly.
It could be at their work, and it could be in their car. And that's another thing. That's a huge thing that I'm learning about is mold in cars. So when you're looking at the subject of cross-contamination, right? So say, for instance, when I go into a job and I have mold spores all over me because I walked in some gnarly job I didn't know, right? And now I come home to my house, I get into my car, and I introduce that spore to my house. I live by the beach, it has a lot of moisture, and now that spore is going to start going in my house. So cross-contamination is huge. So if you have mold in your house, or if you have mold in your office, and then you go into your car, and then you contaminate your car, and then you go into your house, and the cross-contamination sometimes never ends. So a lot of things that I like to do with mold remediation in someone's house is to address everything, every room, all the clothes, all the bedding, all the sheets, everything, including the car. So we're learning how to clean the car and making sure that cars are clean. And sometimes we test cars to find out if there's spores in cars. And we found out that there's a lot of spores in cars. There's mold wise in cars a lot. So, yeah.
Wow.
Especially if you have kids that hide the cheeseburgers in the if you have like if you have a minivan. My kids used to do this all the time. It was awful. So we had like these little. You had a minivan. I'm sorry to say, but they would pop open the side compartments and they'd say they ate their food and throw like a cheeseburger in there. And luckily, like McDonald's cheeseburgers never actually mold, and that's a testament to how fresh and wonderful that food is. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff, especially, families with kids, and they drop things on the floor, they spill milk or whatever, or if it's raining and now we're introducing moisture to the car and we bring spores in there. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on with cars for sure.
Yeah. I'm happy you brought that up. And I'm curious, how do you treat the clothes, the bedding, that?
Yes, small particle cleaning is something that's incredibly important in doing a mold remediation. You had mentioned this earlier about, even if we built containment and we found, like, say this room is, has mold in this wall, and we build a containment here and we pull out the moldy drywall, and we even have a decontamination chamber and everything. We remove it, we replace it, and everything's fine. We still cross-contaminated the house. So we still brought in spores throughout the rest of the house. So what a small particle clean is I fog everything.
Okay.
Everything gets fogged, and fogging actually doesn't kill spores. It drops everything down to the ground so I can clean things better. So there's a couple methods of this called, I don't know if you've heard of a HEPA pizza or a HEPA sandwich, if anyone's ever done research on this, but it's a method of small particle cleaning where you would actually do the HEPA vacuuming before and then do the small particle clean. And then the sandwiches, you do the HEPA vacuum after.
Gotcha.
So the HEPA pizza is usually what I use. But
because that drops it to the ground and then you can vacuum it. Okay.
So we vacuum it. And then, so we usually do, we'll take microfiber towels. We'll do a wet wipe, but not a soaking wet wipe, but a damp towel. We'll wipe it down.
Drench
really
the
good.
house.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. and then we'll do a dry wipe.
Okay.
And then we run air scrubbers throughout the house. So that's a small particle clean. So
great.
The
I
whole
will be
idea
hiring you for this next week. I'm not joking.
But absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to do it. So
great. Can't wait.
That's a huge part of cleaning up a mold job. So making
that's
sure
the piece that's missing for so many people.
Yeah, definitely is. And just because you solve the problem in one area of the house doesn't mean the rest of the house is safe.
Yeah.
So, and also too is it, just because you can't see it, because mold spores are microscopic. So when you actually see mold growing on something, it's such a huge problem. It's gone. Like it's far beyond anything that you can control. It's out of control. So yes. But and that's one of the things we'll do in a car too, is we'll HEPA vacuum and fog it and all that stuff.
Gotcha. I have a HEPA vacuum.
Good.
I do.
HEPA vacuums are really important.
Yeah.
If you have a vacuum cleaner that you can buy HEPA vacuum for is awesome. And there's a lot of things you can combat against mold in your house and making sure your house is clean, but that's one of them, HEPA vacuum.
Yes, perfect. I love that. That's an actionable thing. And I'm well aware that a lot of the times on this podcast, I'm doom and gloom, just talking about the poison in the Welch and all these things, but I also want to be mindful that I leave my listeners feeling empowered and that they have the tools that they need to combat this problem, that they will be okay, because my sweet listeners, you didn't even know that for the past every single episode that I've ever recorded, I had wild amounts of mold in my body. I didn't know that I was living inside of a moldy home. I really didn't. And with that being said, symptoms can be subtle. So I think I want to talk a little bit about some symptoms on here.
Okay.
And then maybe we could go into some actionable things too. And we'll talk about the ERMI testing and wherever else this takes us.
Prevention and making sure a house is mold free and how to keep mold away from your house. Yes.
Fabulous.
Yes. Okay.
So I'll start with bad news first, and then we'll go to the prevention.
Okay.
So I guess I'll speak to my own body, and then I'll speak to what I see in my patients as well, because as my listeners know, I'm an open book. Everything that I'm experiencing, you get to learn from. So for me, I was getting brain fog. I could not remember my patients' names or faces, which is wildly embarrassing.
Yes.
I couldn't remember words of things that I've said forever, like cabinet or shelf. What the fuck? I would get really dizzy.
Yes.
Out of nowhere. I would feel drunk. I don't drink alcohol. I would feel drunk. My skin broke out to the point that I looked like a leopard. And when people started asking me what was wrong with my skin and I wanted to cry, that's usually the kind of the loudest symptom for me, that now I know if that happens to my skin, it's because my immune system has been so suppressed. So basically what those spots were on my skin is a yeast overgrowth. So you could have a yeast overgrowth anywhere, fam. Like if you have a horrible vaginal yeast infection, if you have candida growing under your breasts, in your mouth, under your armpits, itchy, scalp, your immune system should be able to kill that. So if your immune system can't keep that under control, there's something that's suppressing your immune system. Shortness of breath, fatigue, tingling and numbness, weird neurological symptoms. I was getting some random stabbing pains. That was super cool. That's when I was like, okay, we should listen to the body here. And the pee-pee dance. People have to pee nonstop. I don't know if you've experienced that just being exposed to mold, but it's such a strong toxin that I feel as if it's being filtered by your kidneys and sits in your bladder. It's an irritant and it will make your bladder almost spasm and you'll be like, I just peed. Why am I going to pee in my pants? Why do I have to pee in my pants? And, so that was the thing too. I'd be with patients and I'm like, really? You just peed right before this visit? You shouldn't have to pee again. Headaches, sinus pressure. What else is due to mold? Random rashes. And now I'm shifting into some of my patients, even though I've experienced a lot of these things. Gut symptoms, because you inhale it, it sticks in your mucus, you swallow it, it goes into your gut. That's you. Gut.
I've got mold growing in my nose. So
let me help you.
Yes.
We'll get you some of this. We're going to get you one of everything.
That would be
you
great.
help me, I help you. That's a beautiful thing here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, we're going to talk about prevention in the house next, but while I'm on the medical topic, number one thing is that you have to get out of the exposure, right? You have to find the exposure, you have to get out of it, because it will be an uphill battle if not. You could be taking all these things, you could be detoxing, but if you're still exposed, your body is continuously trying to flush those toxins out. So that, of course, is step one. So once that is starting, or even while you're doing that process, you want to help your body as much as it can. So you need to support your organs of elimination, which first and foremost, fam, you should know this because you listen to this podcast, you gotta poop. You got to poop at least twice a day, because that's the main way these toxins are getting out. Your liver and your kidneys, they package them up and you're either peeing them out or you're pooping them out. So in my patients that are like, I poop once a week, I kid you not how often people tell me and they think that's normal. You're just going to be recirculating all the toxins in your colon. It just reabsorbs them. So step one, you got to poop, but you also have to support your organs of elimination. So your kidneys, your liver, your lymph, your skin, your breath. So I have lots of resources on this podcast as to how to do that in diet and lifestyle, but of course I love supplements from Cellcore. They are by far my favorite, honestly. I love herbs, but Cellcore, they're just a detox company and they're incredible. And the owners, they practice what they preach. They're invested in the company. They're not there for profit. They're there for people. And you could feel that similar to you, right? So I take something called Tudka. This is a bile acid that helps my liver bind and clear out the toxins via the bile so that I can poop them out. Yes, I poop many times every day, so that's great. You need mitochondrial support because mitochondria are deeply targeted by the toxins of mold, and that's where a lot of the fatigue can come up and neurological symptoms because your brain has an insane amount of mitochondria. I'm actually really proud of my brain that she works this well with what is circulating around in there. So this is one of my favorites, BCATP from Cellcore. You got to bind it. Yes. So I love this binder. It's called Carboxy. And a lot of individuals that have been diagnosed with mold illness, you might have been prescribed cholestyramine, which is a binder for your gut. And it's actually something that you use to bind cholesterol. That's the medical use for it, but it binds toxins as well. I would say cholestyramine is really powerful against ochratoxin, but it's not broad. This is broad, and it could get into your brain. It could get into anywhere that you put it, and it will pull the toxins out of your body, and your poop will be dark black and sludge-like. And it's great because the toxins are clearing. We'll get you one of these.
Good. Okay.
And then I am a huge fan of clearing out the sinuses. So this is called Sinew Power. It's oil of oregano and some other stuff. It just helps to break down biofilms, but there's also a lot of really good homeopathics that you can stick up your nose.
That's
Even
awesome.
things like neti pots with herbs can help to clear that out. Good.
Yes.
And let me see if there's anything else. Sweating. You must sweat. Sweating is free.
Yes.
Unless you buy an $8,000 sauna like me that's made of cedar, so hopefully it wasn't contaminated. I'll let you look at it.
Doesn't have mold in it.
It better not fucking have mold in it, or else my landlord's getting sued and buying me a sauna the size of my house.
Yes.
But sweating is great, and just making sure that you're staying active and moving, because that helps to move your lymph and flush your blood. So those are some things that you could do to help your beautiful body, but I would love to chat about some things that you could do in your home as prevention as well.
Well, awesome. Yeah, I'm doing some of that, which is great.
Great.
So,
And now you
doing
have a doctor on your team, so we'll take you to the next
I am
level.
So yeah, that's why I'm so excited to be here. 'Cause I just want to ask
Yay.
you like what the hell's going on with me? Because so just for me being exposed to mold all the time,
Yeah.
right? So, and not knowing it, sometimes I walk into something I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. But yeah, what I've developed over the years is I will wake up in the morning with a stuffed up nose, and I'll get post-nasal drip, and I will cough it up for an hour every single morning, and I'm fine for the rest of the day. And I attribute that to mold. So what I've been doing, it's helped me a lot, is I've been neti potting with oregano in it, and I've actually done some chopped up garlic.
Cool.
I put garlic in there,
Spicy.
and I feel like my eyeballs are gonna pop out when I do it.
That's how you know it's working.
But yeah, it's been helping out a lot. So, but yeah, gosh, I mean, if you ever did a test on me, you'd probably wonder why I'm still alive.
Yeah, well, I'm very grateful that you are still alive. Speaking of that, do you wear any protective equipment when you are doing the
yes.
remediation?
Well, yeah, when we're doing remediation, obviously, yeah. So gloves, we wear what I call them Tyvek suits, and they're just like hazmat suits. They're made of plastic, and talk about sweating. You could sweat like you wouldn't believe in those things. And so,
Detox.
Yeah. And then they have hoods with respirators, full mask respirators, making sure that you're changing the respirators, the cartridges on a regular basis, that kind of stuff, protecting yourself. But I don't necessarily do the work, so I'm not really exposed to it that much. But if I am walking into a house that has an issue in it, obviously I'll wear a Tyvek suit, respirator, the whole thing, just walking through it. So, and I do my best to try to come home and rid myself of whatever I have on my body. So luckily I haven't been anywhere gnarly today, so I've just been cruising around in my car. So.
I mean, I was in my my old house, so here we are, probably contaminated everything.
But I'll come home. There's a product called EC3.
Yes. Sorry,
a lot of people have heard of it.
I'll put it in the comments.
They have a laundry additive. So
I use it every day.
It's amazing. It's great. So what I'll do is I'll take my clothes off in the garage, and I'll just throw it in the laundry, and then run and take a shower, and then put new clothes on. So that's important. So I want to make sure whatever I've been exposed to that I'm not bringing in my family's house or exposing my own house to it. So
beautiful. So that's a great preventative thing, just as far as the cross-contamination goes, and making sure that you're finding those spores, washing them out from your clothes, from your body, from whatever. But what would you say to someone that's renting a house if they're worried that there could be mold, or if they want to just prevent mold? What would you tell them to do in their house?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I would say probably the most popular source of mold growth in people's houses that I see are like where all the water sources are. So under sinks, in bathrooms, in kitchens. A couple of things cause these water damages. And you keep a lot of products under your sink, right? Cleaning products and stuff. And a lot of people will go for a product and they'll look and there'll be mold in their, under their sink, and they never knew about it. So there's a couple of things that cause that. One is making sure that the sink is sealed around the outside. That's something that's very common, is the sealing or the caulking that the sink sits on the counter has been compromised, and so water is getting through there. And so a lot of times, especially in granite and tile countertops, it has wood underneath of it supporting it, right? So now you're exposing all of that wood to water, and it's dark under the cabinet, and mold tends to grow there. Also around all of your faucets and all of the hardware and stuff will tend to do the same thing. So water will actually fall down in there. There's also, the plumbing underneath. There's what we call P-trap. Looks like a little U-tube under there. And sometimes when you get a clog, that P-trap will kind of move around, or it's not tightened all the way, to make sure that should be a little tightener on there. Make sure it's nice and tight and it's not coming apart, because sometimes it'll look like it's on there, but then water will be in the bottom of your sink. So making sure that that's tight. And then also your shutoff valves, you'll have like a cold and hot water shutoff valve. those tend to leak all the time. So they get corroded. So just take a look at them, make sure that they're not corroding. And if I think it's only like $3 to get a new shutoff valve. You know, put it on there. It's definitely a preventative thing. So when we see water losses or, small leaks, we usually see it on that. So that's one of them. Also, like we mentioned earlier, if you had an accidental water loss, take care of it right away. So when you do have a clean water loss, it is safe to put fans on it. So if it's something that happened a long time ago, like 2 weeks ago, don't put a fan on it. So that's a rule of thumb for that. There's in just washing clothes in EC3. Showers are infamous for growing mold.
Yes.
So mold needs a couple things to grow. It needs moisture and something organic, right? But people always ask me, well, why do I have mold on my tile in my shower? Why do I have mold in my grout? And we shed skin a lot, right? And there's organic materials in dust particles, right? So what happens is these dust particles in our skin gets wedged into the grout. If you look at grout under a microscope, it'll look like Swiss cheese, right?
Ew.
And you'll get things like kind of stuck in these crevices, and exposing it to water, like in a shower, you'll start growing mold on it. So just making sure that you're cleaning those on a regular basis is really important. Once you have, that's where you start getting this pink mold, if you've ever seen the pink mold in the showers. So that's something that's very common. So just making sure that you're cleaning things on a regular basis, keeping things cleaned. And EC3 makes a great product to do that, clean showers and countertops and stuff with. Ventilation in bathrooms are huge. Making sure that you invest in a good ventilation system for your bathroom. There are some people that don't have them, which is not good. But if you have a window in your bathroom, open the window. Nature wants to always find this equilibrium all the time, right? So if it's dry outside, like right now, I think it's still overcast and kind of damp, so maybe today's not a great day to do it. But if it's a dry day and it's drier outside than it is inside, it'll pull out the moisture out of your bathroom. So it'll find this equilibrium. So keep your windows open as much as possible, unless it's raining outside or we've got May Gray. Have you learned May Gray and June Gloom yet?
I've been here since 09, so unfortunately I know it too well.
You know.
I'm like a Californian at this point. I'll just always rep New York.
Yeah, I know. So, but those are huge.
Great.
Getting a dehumidifier.
That was
for
what I was
your
going to just
home
ask
is
you.
Another one. Yeah, buying a good dehumidifier for your house. And HEPA filters, getting a good air filter in your house. I like Air Doctor, if you've ever heard Air Doctor. So I think they make a good product. When looking at a air filtration system or looking at a dehumidifier, it really has to do with a couple things. How much air is it filtering through the product, right? So when we bring in like a commercial air scrubber, it's just a big HEPA filter. The exchange of air is we exchange a lot of air. So I can clean all this air in this room in a short amount of time. Whereas if I have a small little air purifier, it might take a day or 2 or 3 days. Who knows, right? So the air doctors do a pretty good job of kind of getting that air through it quickly. Same thing with dehumidifiers, is just how much water are you taking out of the air. If you live by the beach like I do, and I like a lot of people in San Diego, you definitely want to make sure that you're combating that air and making sure that air is drier. So we have a big issue with surface mold down by the beach. So even though we don't have a water damage or hasn't been like a flood or anything in the house, there's a lot of surface mold that and to combat that, we got to make sure that we've got air filters and dehumidifiers for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's pretty standard at this point for anyone I'm working with. I mean, I tell them to clean up their environment. Just step one, you have to be drinking clean water. You need to be showering clean water. You need to have clean air in your house. Yes. So just get an air filter. Even if you don't know if there's mold in there, get an air filter, dehumidifier. All these things are really actionable. And outside of that, you're just being open and aware and on top of any sign of water, anything, any discoloration on the pipes, any signs of rusting, any signs of condensation. None of that is normal. That's all a sign that there's something going on. And then you would want to call someone that could find the issue.
Yes.
So I'm happy that you went into all of that.
Great. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of others. And but those are the main ones. Those are what I see the most common.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Chris, this conversation, I feel like I could talk to you about mold for 10 more hours, which we're going to have you back on so that we could talk more about mold and maybe get into some success stories from your world and my world or something like that. But I know that my listeners are going to get so much from this. So first, can you please tell my beautiful humans how they can contact you?
Yes, you can. We have our website. We have like a landing page right now for our new website. That's up. You can go to renewprorestoration.com. See, I almost forgot about it.
Did so good.
and we you can look us up that way. There's a phone number on there, which is my personal cell phone. So feel free to text me or call me if you have any questions. You can also email me at chris@renewprorestoration.com. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for me. And as just as being a guest on the show and just being a part of something great, I want to offer your listeners, if they want me to come down for a free inspection, I'd be happy to do that for free, and at least steer them in the right direction and tell them where they're, what next steps to take.
You're amazing, and that could honestly almost make me cry just because I have so many humans in my world that are so overwhelmed by this, and I'm just so grateful that I have someone like you that I can send them to, and you're just so easy to talk to, and you're just, well, now I know that you're a dad, so it's probably, you have like a dad energy, and you're like, it's going to be okay. I got you. Yeah. So thank you so much for being generous and giving my listeners that gift.
Thank you very much.
Of course. And I always end this podcast with you. Just to see if there's anything that you want to share. It could be a love bomb to your gorgeous family. It could be a truth bomb, something about mold that we haven't talked about, a knowledge bomb, something that you're like, I never knew this. Anything that you want, the stage is yours.
Goodness sakes, I never have the stage. I don't even know what to say. Yeah, I would just say that those of obviously the viewers out there have mold issues and looking for some help. There are so many people out there, and you might feel overwhelmed by it, and you might feel like your house is something that you need to evacuate the family right away. Just there's a lot of people that are here to help you and making sure that you're safe. Don't panic. I've never seen a house that I've told somebody, you got to move out. Probably in all the houses that I've been in, I've probably been in maybe 3 of them. I'm like, there's nothing we can do.
Wow.
So
okay.
It's all solvable. Your health is solvable. Your house is solvable. Your mind is solvable. It's all solvable.
Beautiful. Mic drop, my friend.
I don't know. Gosh, I did not rehearse that.
No, it was great. And it was the exact message that I wanted to leave the listeners with. So I so appreciate you sharing that and that little bit of, optimism, because we all need it in this world. And I always like to just remind my listeners that you can heal from anything, but you also need to know what you're healing from. So This is really empowering info. And I'm just so grateful that I met you and that you were open to come on down here.
It's an honor. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Well, my beautiful friends and listeners, I will leave all of his info in the bottom here so that you can find him. I'm also pumping out a ridiculous amount of mold info because you all need it. I'm going to have workbooks. I'm going to have a course. I'm going to have all sorts of stuff. So if you're not subscribed, you need to subscribe so you have access to everything. I am so grateful to be on this learning journey with you, and thanks for listening. See you next time.